Hello and welcome everyone to Afternoon Tea with Docs. If we haven't met before, I'm Dr. Linda, emergency medicine physician from Sheffield, and I'm here with my lovely co-host, Dr. Erica, GP from the West Midlands, and we are both lifestyle medicine physicians. Well, it's so lovely to see so many of you join us today again here on Zoom, and if you're joining on YouTube, welcome. If you are new to the show itself, well, we are here every Sunday at 5 p.m. UK time, bringing you world-renowned health experts like our guest today, Dr. Johnson Tam-Lit. And our mission here is to bust medical misinformation and share practical, evidence-based lifestyle advice that you can implement right away to help you prevent, treat, and reverse chronic diseases in a supportive community setting. After the interview, if you joined us here on Zoom, you will be able to speak to us and our guest expert off camera to answer all of your burning questions in a very private community setting. You can join us on social media and say hello on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn by searching for the handle Afternoon Tea with Docs. Well, our events and our community setting is accessible free of charge and always will be to make sure that health is freely available to all. But if you would like to support us and buy us a cup of tea, then you are able to donate by visiting our website, afternoonteawithdocs.com/donate.
Today we are speaking to Dr. Johnson Tam-Lit on the importance of movement. Johnson brings a scientific mindset which is based on 25 years as an anaesthetist, whose world expanded exponentially when he embarked on a master's on creativity, innovation, and leadership. He has been surprised that while medicine has advanced tremendously in terms of managing the big diseases like diabetes, hypertension, and heart disease, we are nowhere near able to effect changes in people's lifestyles, without which we are left managing disease instead of effecting cures. With this in mind, Johnson founded Momentum Life Choices, a platform that brings together a diverse range of voices to share science-based practices that influence and not dictate from above. Welcome, Johnson.
Welcome, Johnson. Thank you for joining us today.
Yes, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Before we start, and there's so much to discuss, but we would love to find out what inspired you to become a doctor and what shifted your mindset after so many years practicing conventional medicine to sharing evidence-based lifestyle practices and Momentum Life Choices.
So for me, growing up in Trinidad, a lot of the influence I had around me was from my dad. And my dad used to say to me, you know, you can come and work with me in a business setting. You may be able to go and do law, or why don't you consider medicine? And being the sort of in that era, I thought, well, medicine sounds fun, especially when I get the chance to go from a small island of Trinidad to a bigger island, which was Dublin in Ireland, so where I spent 6 years. So a lot of it is based around people. It's a lot of based around trying to help people in some form or fashion. And that to me was the inspiration. So after that, I've moved on to doing anesthetics. And sometimes in life, you think you have a plan and the plan finds you instead of you finding the plan. And that sort of transition from Trinidad to Dublin back to the UK, where I am presently, has been quite a journey. And that to me is saying, well, here, this is where I am, and this is where I feel that I've made a difference in a particular period of time. So the last part of that question is, so why move from mainstream medicine? And for me, mainstream medicine is great for what it does, but there are gaps in it. And the gaps in it are fundamental into the way that we actually think about medicine. So like medicine has an ideology in it, and the ideology is based around, I'm the expert and you're the recipient, or I'm the parent and you're the child. So we come along and we purvey knowledge, and hopefully we purvey wisdom in the process. That may or may not be so. And a lot of the times the advice that we give, it is difficult to follow because there's a lack of ability to communicate from above. And if you have an above mentality of communicating, then getting down to a level, sort of like it's, I don't mean this in a negative way, but it's like for me, when I go and play with children, I find it very hard to get down on their level because of being an adult. So moving out of mainstream medicine and doing a master's in creativity and innovation, one is about finding new avenues. One is about trying to see if the brain over 50 still works and can learn. And so that to me is the journey that I've been on.
Incredible, Johnson. Thank you for sharing your journey. And I think your feelings of there being gaps in the way that we currently practice medicine, we definitely echo that and resonate with that here on Afternoon Tea with Docs. And I'm sure a lot of our people in the audience would agree with that as well. And today we're talking about movement, and the title is Don't Exercise, Move. And I guess a lot of people know that exercise is good for us in general, maybe not specifically how it is good for us, but it's good for us in general. But we're perhaps less aware of the dangers of being inactive, which is actually the fourth leading risk factor for death globally. And it contributes to about 1 in 10 deaths, premature deaths. And this huge risk factor is twice as common as smoking. And just as with smoking, it increases our risk of heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and even breast cancer and colon cancers. So I guess before we continue, Johnson, could you just define what physical inactivity means for us?
That's a really interesting question, because in some ways, I don't want to contradict you, but physical inactivity is a misnomer in itself, in that it is, even as we sit here, we are physically inactive, but the body is doing something. So it's using energy just sitting. So if you're asleep, you're still using energy. If you're eating, you're using energy. And so we all have what's called a basal metabolic rate. And that basal metabolic rate is going on at all particular points at a time. The difficulty then has to be translated into what I think of as how we got from a point in history to a point at this present point, and why that is different. So if I can take you through the idea that we went from hunter-gatherers, historically, mankind, we went through an agricultural revolution, we went through an industrial revolution, and we are currently going through a digital revolution. And at each particular point in history, something has changed that affects, something has changed in regards to our physical inactivity, if you call it, or our basic metabolic rates are staying the same, but something is changing. So if I can illustrate it, if I can, with this, if I share the screen with you, this image. So on the top left, we have hunter-gatherers, or people who we would imagine as what a typical hunter-gatherer is. You see people who are standing and people who are sitting. The sitting bit is the important piece. So you look at them and you think they're sitting. You look at the person on the top right and they're sitting. And you look at the two people at the bottom and you think they're sitting. And while all of that is true, there is a difference in the amount of calories that are burnt, depending on which of these three images you're looking at. So for someone sitting on the ground or squatting on the ground, your muscles are tenser. Your gluteus maximus, which are the biggest muscles in your body, are under tension. All of your erectus muscles are under tension. You may have some tension in your arms, in your neck, in your back, and that is using up energy. The person on the stool is not using as much because there is some support, and wherever there's support, wherever there's comfort, there's muscle relaxation. So you move from the left to the right, and you end up in certain cinemas. And I don't know if you've ever been in these cinemas, and they to me are like, wow. They consist of not quite two individual seats like these, but they're love seats, or they're two very, very padded seats. They might put a table in front of you. They turn the lights off and they focus all your attention on a screen that entertains you, that excites you. And at the same time, they put some food in front of you, which is high in free sugars, low in fibers, and probably low in a lot of other nutrients. And that's where we are at this point in time. So we've transitioned over time, but very, very slowly. So whether we like it or not, evolution happens. The danger with slow is that slow is invisible. And the slower it is, the less likely we are to see the effects of the change. And so we as a species, we as society have been affected by evolutionary changes, but also we've been affected by food manufacturing practices and agricultural practices. So all of this contributes to where we are at present. And that to me is the first thing to realize, that where we are at present matters.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said, society has changed, and now we seem to prioritize convenience and speed over a lot of other important things. So fast food, because that's convenient. I'll drive 2 minutes down the street rather than walk 5 minutes, because that'll get me there quicker, because, time is money. There's just society is very fast paced at the moment, and that has influenced a lot of our choices.
Yep, very much.
So we're talking about movement, and we say don't exercise, move. So why aren't we using the term exercise, and what is the difference between the term exercise and movement?
Okay. Again, movement is what may be defined as unfocused, unstructured, not goal-orientated. Exercise, I think as defined by the Oxford Dictionary, talks about repetitive, talks about energy that's aimed towards a particular goal. And so that key difference there is one seems to be unfocused and one is focused. It's repetitive, it's your running, it's your cycling, it's your trying to achieve something which helps with your health and fitness. Whereas people think of movement and think, yeah, oh, it's just movement. So movement I see as the umbrella under which exercise sits. So I'm not anti-exercise, I'm pro-movement because of the minuscule bits of movement that have disappeared. So I'll come back again. It's the difference between a vacuum cleaner and a brush that sweeps. And now we've moved from a brush that sweeps to a vacuum cleaner to a robot vacuum cleaner. And if you think about the lack of movement as we've moved along, and all of that energy that we've saved, and all of that time that we've saved, and you put it in terms of the first law of thermodynamics, which says energy is not destroyed, it is converted. So when I save all the energy of not sweeping the floors, and I vacuum, so I've saved a bit more energy by just putting the digital bit that tells my robot to vacuum, where's all that energy gone to? And the answer is, it's converted mainly into fat. We then, come on to the exercise piece, and you're saying, well, yeah, you should go and exercise. The problem I have with exercise is it's got words attached to it and feelings like hard, like slog, like sweat, like pain, and all this stuff here that psychologically means it is not the most attractive thing to do. And I think that's part of the reasoning that we are, not willing to exercise or find it hard to exercise.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I guess this would be a good time to talk about your own journey with movement and physical activity, and also our audience, if you'd like to share in the chat your own experience with moving, exercising, being physically active, and perhaps what motivates you as well.
Okay, so back in 3 years ago, I had a moment when I needed to get out of the house. A family member who had a particular illness that I had to deal with. And so I thought, right, well, there's a gym down the road. I'll go to the gym. Mainly to clear your mind of what you're facing and dealing with stuff that you have to deal with, because we all have to deal with stuff. So I started going to this gym, and I have to say that gyms are not friendly towards children under 12, and in my opinion, they're not friendly to people over 50. Not because they are unfriendly people, but because the environment itself is designed in a particular way for a particular sector of society. And I think if you go to any gym, you will see on one side the resistance, the weights, the pulleys, all of that sort of stuff, and they have mirrors in front of them. And usually in front of the mirrors are people who don't look like me, or they don't reflect, I think, the vast majority of society. So there'd be usually high testosterone levels, where the big muscles, they're very attractive leotards and all the rest of that. But when I go into that space, I don't look like any of them. And I think that's the first thing to say, is that it becomes something that you have to overcome if you're going to be in that space. So I did that for 18 months. I was very, very fortunate in that I could find things, and this is one of the key things if you are going to go to the gym, to overcome. Maybe it's not unfriendly to everybody, but you still have to overcome the exercise mentality. And so for me, it was listening to podcasts, or it could be I'd look across and I'd see a girl reading a book on the treadmill. And I'm thinking, wow, yeah, that's good. And then I looked again and I realized, hold on, she's actually pregnant. And so these are the sort of things that at least for me, give me some kind of mental stimulation, pleasure, if you wish, that keeps you on that treadmill. And then there are other times I look and there's, hold on, there's a guy there, I reckon he's plus 50 plus. He's in a string vest. And I'm thinking, wow, I can relate to that person. And so community and all that good stuff, and mirror neurons start flashing everywhere and people start smiling at you. And I experience what somebody calls the difference between a smile and a laugh is that a laugh is a smile that's exploded. And that's exactly what it's like. You go there and you watch, and you know, you don't look the most gracious and the most fun and all the rest of that. And somebody just goes a little bit further than the smile. And I think, wow, I'm in the right place. So this is my journey, the first bit of my journey.
Yeah, please carry on.
So then everybody knows where we've been for the last 2 years. And the last 2 years means there's no gym. Even if I wanted to go to gym, there is no gym. So I discovered Joe Wicks. And Joe Wicks and high intensity interval training don't work for me, because it is even harder work. My heart rate is going way beyond the 90% of the standard that they use for measuring your fitness levels. And I can't keep up with Joe Wicks. So I discovered other best friends who I call Wade and Angie. And Wade and Angie were part of a group that I think they're called Body Project. And I think they're brilliant what these guys do. The Body Project is about ordinary people doing ordinary things. And they used to smile at me as well. And Wade was not the smallest guy. And Angie, his wife, I saw the pictures of the before and the after. And she is not the smallest in terms of size of body mass index after. And they had health issues. So finding community online was important to building the next step, because when you're trapped physically in a space, you need to be able to find some relief. And so for me, that was the first step of saying, right, I can do this stuff. And I've got somebody who's smiling at me and who keeps repeating the words, the pause button is your friend. I thought, yeah, the pause button really is my friend. As I walked to the bathroom, as I walked to the kitchen, I came back half an hour later and they're still waiting on me. What sort of friends do you have like that? And this sort of thing is really encouraging when you can find that. And you keep doing that, and I can still tell you what the the half an hour entail. I won't demonstrate it tonight, but it became ingrained in my brain, and it became part of your muscle memory. And so what was happening is that you're building a habit. And I know what it's like when you press that, you unpress the pause button, and it just runs, and half an hour has gone past. And that's it. Suddenly I've gone from exercising to moving and laughing and fun. And I think that's a key part of what we need to do in order to bring movement back.
Thank you for sharing your story. And I think it's really nice to hear different people's journey when it comes to movement, because we all have such different journeys and stories to tell. And it's great that they don't look the same. We all have a different starting point, and it's fine. And I have a very different experience. Linda has a very, very different experience to me when it comes to moving our body. And when I think back to my own childhood, the family that I, grew up in, exercise, formal structured exercise, it's just not a thing in my family. But when I think back to my childhood, I was constantly moving. I was playing with my sister. We were running around in the playground. We lived in a 40+ story building, and we ran up and down the building all the time. So we were constantly moving. And now I have also difficulty when it comes to exercising, because that, again, is that it's hard work. It's I have to do it kind of mentality. So what I find the most enjoyable is actually going out for hikes and walks, because I love being in nature, and I love being able to, have a conversation with the people that I'm, walking with or hiking with. And again, that goes back to my childhood, where on weekends we'd go out to the countryside for a walk or a hike. So that's my favorite form of movement. And Linda, would you share with us your journey with activity, physical activity as well?
Yes, certainly. I can see that the current approach to exercise and what we have done to our patients is pushing them into the exercise industry, where they pay for the gym membership starting in January. They go for a month or two, and then because it's so unnatural, there are lights, neon lights, there are a lot of people, as Johnson, you just described, there's mirrors in front of you, constantly being reminded on how you look in comparison to other people, by subjecting people to look at themselves every single time when all they should be doing is having fun with their peers. We are literally feeding our patients and our communities into this machine of gym memberships, which nobody ever takes. And I think we are also at the same time robbing them from the joy of movement, because immediately there's an association that a gym membership is movement. And we need a gym membership, and we need to exercise so that we lose weight. We shouldn't be talking about losing weight. We should be talking about having fun and gaining health. And we have seen in lifestyle medicine that even just 10 minutes movement, or just standing up from your chair, gives you already an advantage over just sitting in your chair the whole day. So sedentary lifestyle, movement into activities, there's a huge shift of health gain. And I certainly see this with my own life, where I have been exercising since I was very young, and I was an athlete, and I used it actually to define my own personality. I improved my mental health with it. I was able to see what my body could do, and that translated into academia as well. So I transitioned that achievement into my everyday thinking. So it was very empowering. But once we grow up and we become adults, what happens? This movement is robbed from you. Even when you had a good experience with exercise when you were young, immediately in adulthood, it's kind of not allowed anymore. And I think that's one of the biggest faults of the Western world, where in a busy society, you are no longer allowed or permitted with the busy lifestyle to move. So for a short time, I stopped movement as well, and I immediately saw the side effects of that. And I revisited this thought of what is exercise? Well, exercise is being with my friends, with my family, moving in nature, and doing it regularly enough to actually benefit my lifestyle, not just once in a while. But how can we achieve that? That's the question. And I believe for me, certainly, I achieve that by going with the community for walks, for cycles, implementing daily 10 to 15-minute movements as a baseline, with the thinking that this is not about losing weight, but about gaining health, both mental and physical health, for sure. So I think we need to shift the conversation from exercise being a tool to lose weight, because this is old school, this doesn't work, and actually it makes people very alienated from movement, towards let's go have fun and move for our health, because every single small movement is very, very powerful for health gain. So I would love to ask you, Johnson, what does NEAT have to do with all of this?
Okay, if I can show you the diagram that relates to NEAT again. So this here is a graph that looks at, let's say, a person who expends 3,000 kilocalories a day. So I said to you before, your basal metabolic rate is what everybody expends in terms of energy. This is fixed. When you're eating, you actually burn energy. But as for, I found out to my own demise that eating more is not the best way to burn more energy. It doesn't work. And the one in red is energy that's burned by activity. And if you look on the right-hand side, you'd see that there's exercise in this box, the top box, and there's non-exercise activity, which stands for NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis, basically producing heat. So when we sort of use the word exercise, and you think running, you think plyometrics if you're really that way inclined, you think cycling, you think swimming, you think weightlifting. So anything that's helps with cardio or strength training, basically you divide it down into that. But most of it, as you will see, the energy we expend, you can spend 1 hour, 2 hours in the gym, and you probably won't be doing that on a regular basis. So this is happening every day. Now, every day, like I said to you, how much exercise are you actually performing versus the non-exercise activity? How much ironing do you do? Well, I have to say I don't do any ironing for a start. But when ironing was the thing, you'd actually be burning energy. When we didn't have tumble dryers, you actually would be burning energy. And so these things have got lost as parts of NEAT. Who knows about polishing shoes anymore? Nobody polishes shoes anymore. And, well, unless you have to, obviously for work purposes. So NEAT is important for those reasons. When I talked about before the sitting, for example, the sitting, forget the cinema, okay? But the chair that I'm sitting on has got a back, and it's designed now to be comfortable for me to sit for as long as possible. We've created a science of ergonomics, which says, okay, let's build comfort in your life. The problem with too much comfort is killing us. Maybe you can, if you're able to, use one of those yoga balls to sit on. You'll burn a lot more energy, or maybe the kneeling chairs. I'm not recommending that, by the way, for everyone, because not everyone is able to do that. Or that's why standing tables have become fashionable, or desk cycles. All of these things are sort of like ways in which you try and recapture or use some of the NEAT up. That's where NEAT fits into the equation.
And when we look around, everything is made ergonomic. Everything is made so that it is more comfortable, because then we buy it, right? We want it to be comfortable at purchase. So we're kind of transitioned into this thinking that everything needs to be comfortable, but unfortunately it goes against how the body was created. The body was created so that we move. We need to be able to move because we have muscles, and if we don't use them, we totally lose them. So what is the movement toolbox that you have available for yourself, to your disposal, and to those of your friends and family?
Well, firstly, I try not to tell my friends and family what to do, because then I have less friends and maybe less family. It comes down to what you're trying to achieve. So if we say, what are you trying to achieve by exercise? And you might say, well, health and fitness. So is that physical health or is that mental health? And so I suggest that if you go to the gym, you're not going to get much in terms of mental health for all the reasons that we've talked about. When I started with my friends on YouTube, it quickly led me down the track of movement, rhythmical movement, and I use that as opposed to dance, because you would not like to see me dance. It's not a pretty sight, but I try to do rhythmical movement. So I would watch, or I have watched, what she called, they're women who are not as young and slim and fit and all the rest of that. And my wife and myself have done this. So I don't do this by myself as well. So I've got somebody beside me who explodes, her smiles explodes when she looks in my direction. And I try not to laugh at her, I just smile and say, yes. So we have this thing that's going on a screen, and we're looking at each other at the same time, or we can see what each other's doing. And we've moved from one type of movement to another. So we've got names, and you can find these if anywhere you want. So for me, it's a name like me, Paula Bickford, who's a 50-plus-year-old woman, and somebody typed in Liz Senior Dance, and you'll come up with a person who demonstrates something to you. and it's rhythmical. And so the next phase of my discovery of rhythmical movement is when I start to look at my other main interest is anxiety and trauma. And the research that I found, one of the names was James S. Gordon. And James S. Gordon is a psychiatrist, psychologist who's worked in areas like Haiti after the first earthquake. He's worked with post 9/11 people. He's worked in areas where Katrina, the hurricane was. And he started to talk about rhythmical movement as means of helping alleviate trauma and anxiety. So this sort of thing, and I kept hearing stories from people who are saying, well, when they went to do some yoga practice and suddenly somebody starts to cry and thinking, what's all that about? And it's realizing that trauma and anxiety have now, it's not just a above the neck sort of thing as we've traditionally done in medicine. It's a whole mind-body approach. So you have to get rid of the dualism that exists. And so as I started to do this, there'd be times when the stress is whatever stress I was under at the time. I have to say that I'd be doing whatever movement it is, and I'd start to cry. So this isn't necessarily, let's going to do some deep psychological stuff and what's going on in your brain at the present, Johnson, because you wouldn't like to know what's going on in my brain. But the mere fact that you can do this releases some of the tension, releases some of the pressure, releases some of the stress. It takes you from the fight and flight, overactive panic mode back down to a calming level. So I then moved on to doing things like Tai Chi, because, so I'm not suggesting that I have Tai Chi for everybody, but I can tell you what some of the benefits are. If you want something that you get the most for your money or the most for your time, Tai Chi or Qi Jung ticks a lot of those boxes. One is cheap, okay? 2, you can do it by yourself. 3, you can do it with other people. 4, you can do it outside in nature. And then if you look at what the mechanics of it is that doing it, you can focus on your body movements. You can focus on the rhythm of your body. You can get a sense of what's happening, where is it hurting. And as you move, it starts to relax. And then, so a lot of us have lost contact with our bodies. So there's a body piece of it. Then you can look at your mind. So what's going on in my mind as I'm doing these particular movements? It is, to me, meditative movement. And the other piece of it, which is common to things like yoga as well, is you can focus on the breath work. And that's a massive piece in itself. There's so much stuff around breath work at the moment. And to me, understanding breath, understanding, they say to try and get down to 6 breaths per minute, square breathing, all these different patterns of breathing. It helps in terms of your stress levels. It helps in terms of your anxiety. And those are really, really important. So that to me is key in terms, like I said, for me, in the toolbox, it works. Oh, and the one last piece in it, for anybody who thinks, learning is important, if you start to learn particular movements, just like learning languages or learning to play a guitar or whatever, the active learning strengthens your mental capacity. It encourages neurogenesis. It encourages microglia, which are part of the brain's immune system. All of these benefits can be had for free. And it doesn't hurt, or it doesn't have to hurt.
Absolutely. There are so many benefits of exercising and moving. And you've talked about so many important things there. And one of the very first things you said was actually why are you exercising? Is it for your, physical fitness? Is it for your mental health? I've heard on one of your podcasts that one of your motivating factors was actually your physical health and lowering your blood pressure. Could you maybe talk a little bit about that? And why is it so important for us to really know our why?
Sure. The why is the thing that will keep you going. The why is the bit that when it gets tough and it starts to rain, as I'm going through doing the park run, or the other thing I do, the run, talk, walk, which is a fantastic charity in itself. When it starts to rain, then the why kicks in. I'm here because I need to be fitter in whatever it is. So I remember my blood pressure when it was, it was high, let's put it that way. And then I went from taking amlodipine to amlodipine plus candesartan. And I kept reading these things that said, if you exercise, you can get off your meds. Now, this is my own personal self-experimentation. This is not saying that everybody can and should. But what I did find was that after 8 months, I moved from hypertensive to normotensive. And I dropped the candesartan. And I've been normotensive, normal blood pressure for the last 9 months. I'm just about to stop the amlodipine, with the proviso that I'm checking it regularly, by the way. So this is not this is not medical advice saying that thou shalt. But if you start to do these things and you see the benefits, then your why gets stronger. The benefits get stronger. Plus, the other benefit was not to my mental health, but to my wife's mental health, because she said, wow, you went away and you weren't in the best of moods, were you? She's very diplomatic. In fact, she's lovely. And I'd say, yeah, it was a bit tense. And she said, yeah, okay, but you're smiling now. I said, really? Oh, sorry. Because one of the things, the benefits of doing this is the people you meet along the way. And some of the people I met along the way, they smile and they laugh. And I thought, no, I'll give you this as a free tip. I thought I'd practice this. You run along and it's painful, and you meet somebody and you go, hello, and you smile at them. And some may duck and some may do this, but you keep doing it and people respond, because we all respond to each other. We love, I say, we hurt in isolation, we heal in community. And that it is massive when you start to do these things. So the benefits just keep coming and coming. But certainly in terms of blood pressure, it works, I think, to reduce the dependency on insulin for diabetics, people who have reversed their type 2 diabetes. And it's there, and you guys probably know much more about that than I do.
I loved your sentence on how community heals us. It's so important. Even now with the lockdown, we have seen the side effects of the lockdown, and isolation, loneliness has shot through the roof. And what's good about movement is that we can do it together. We can do it together outside. We just have to encourage our neighbors, our family and friends to find new ways of movement. And Johnson, you already inspired someone who is just listening here on YouTube, who just shared with us that he's going to take on Tai Chi because of you.
Oh, fantastic.
We look forward to hearing what your opinion is on Tai Chi Optimized. I would love to know a little bit more about movement and memory. What are the associations and current evidence between the two subjects?
Okay, I have to take you back to my first childhood memories, where I was heading towards the nursery school, and I can still remember the chain link fence, the dogs that were behind the fence, the terrible shame of walking around in grey khaki shorts and a light grey shirt and all of that. And I guess for most people, our earliest memories are around the age of 5 or 6. And that's for a particular reason. I think it was, hold on, it's Daniel, but I'm going to think about his name. Daniel Lieberman, because I've got so many Daniels in my head. Daniel Lieberman, I think, talks about this in terms of how our memories develop. Our memories are a bit like GPS. Your GPS is to get you from A to B safely. And kids, young children, infants who don't move very much, who are in a pram or in a stroller at that very young age, who if all you can do is get a little bit of bottom shuffling, then you don't get very far, do you? But once we start to move and we can say, oh yeah, so that's the kitchen, that's the living room, that's the bathroom. And as you're moving along, your memory starts to build of these particular spots. And in our brains, we have what's called a hippocampus. And the hippocampus is something that looks like a bit like a seahorse. It's C-shaped. And inside of there is where our memories lie. There are 2 particular types of cells. There's a place cell and there's a grid cell. So the place cell is the kitchen, the bathroom, the bedroom. These are exactly what they're meant to be, places. And the grid cells are the cells that map those connections between the places. And the more that the children start to move, the more that the brain starts to develop, these cells start to grow in number, they start to connect with each other. And I have to tell you, if you get to a point in life where you need the bathroom in the middle of the night at 4 o'clock in the morning, you really need to know that your grid cells are working properly. Otherwise, you can end up in the wrong place. Let's go no further than that. But think of your brain as again, from an energy perspective. Your brain takes up at least 20% of your body's energy. And the old adage of use it or lose it really comes into play here. Because if you're not using the GPS system that's inside and you're not moving around there, as you get older, your body is saying, so why am I producing these cells if you're not using it? And so the idea is that we stop moving and we stop exploring and we stop learning and we stop developing and we sit more, and we sit more, then there is no point in having these energy burning parts of ourselves. So to move from, let's say, the link between running on a treadmill now and running outside links to this. If you're running on a treadmill, it is beautiful. It is smooth, it is rubberized, it's predictable, and it's fantastic for cardio training. What is not so great on is brain training, because brain, like the old movie, you're probably a bit too young to remember this movie, but there used to be it was a robot called Five Alive. And Five Alive, for anybody who remembers, it was back in the 80s, this robot they found who got out of the lab. And he would sit there flipping through all the books and watching all the channels on TV, etc., because he needed input. And it's the same with our brains. We need that constant input of stuff. And when you go outside, as I found, I run and there's a tree root there. Who put that tree root in the middle of the pavement for you to almost trip over? Why is it that these people with their dogs are standing in the middle of your way for you to run around them? Could they not move? And if you flip it around and you think, well, all of this is what my brain needs. It is the input that our brains really, really require. And the more these things happen, the more the synapses start to fire, so that it forms new connections. It activates the parts of our genes that are starting to shut down. This is where epigenetics comes into play. That it is possible to keep moving, keep developing, keep learning, not because you want to live forever. And this is really important, is that we have now technologically been able to expand lifespan. So lifespan's been going up like this, and morbidity, as you fully well know, as we all know, has been going in the opposite direction. So a lot of people now are talking about health span. So part of health span is keeping your brain active. It is about moving outside as opposed to the rubberized treadmill or the Peloton or the rowing machine and all of this stuff there that still is fantastic if you can't get out. So I'm not knocking that, but it does nothing for your mental development.
As you mentioned about our need for our brain for exercise, we have talked about transforming your health with Charlotte Marriott in our last episode. She has brought in the evidence with regards to exercising in nature, as you say, as forest bathing. There's so many positive feedbacks for our brain, where not only are you exercising and you're having all these benefits, but you're also benefiting from nature. That we often say, actually, being 20 minutes in nature is as good as taking one antidepressant from a serotonin point of view. So what's better than going out in nature, exercising, moving, whatever you like to do, it's up to you, but do it outside with your family and friends or with your team. Make sure you join your park run community. There's so much out there. Or maybe go dancing, like with Erica and our team, we have been talking about going dancing because we all love salsa, and going on for hikes. It's just such a positive way of living life in a good community setting. So if you guys want to check out the YouTube on transforming your health, have a look on the YouTube channel to find out a little bit more about that and mental health. And I would love to know, how can we make this effort a habit, Johnson? Because anything that's a habit we don't have to think about, right? We do it automatically. So how can we do that with exercise and movement?
So, how long have we got?
For you, any long.
Uh,
Please do tell us.
you are such a flirt, you are.
I
I
know
love
I
it.
get it a lot.
No, but seriously, that is a massive topic, and that is, in a nutshell, I would say it starts with the why. Okay, it continues on with getting your dopamine hit really, really quickly. That buzz, that excitement, that sort of stuff is important. That gets you over the hurdle of, hey, this is hard work. If you're going down the exercise route, or even if you're going hiking, you have to get to that view where you go, wow. And then you go, I wonder what's around the corner. There's another 2,000 feet to have to climb, but hey, that view further on must be simply amazing. So building the habits you have to incorporate getting that first hit of pleasure quickly. And like you say, with all the stuff that goes on, I've forgotten I was going to use the dumbbells. So my tip in terms of dumbbells is I put a dumbbell at the bottom of my bed. So I either have to walk around it, which is a pain, or you might as well lift it and move it. And if you lift it and move it once, lift it and move it twice. And if you're lifting and moving it with your right hand, lift and move it with your left hand. And you don't have to spend more than not even 2 minutes doing that. And I've started to build a habit. Small habits. Forget the big goals of, I'm not interested in, 25 kilos, 50 kilos, whatever it is. That's not the point. The issue of it is building the simple habits. So the other habit, I think somebody mentioned earlier about dancing in the kitchen with their kids. Now, part of what I and we do sometimes, more times than not, is I'll stand on one leg and do single leg squats while waiting on the porridge to cook. I don't have to do it more than once or twice per morning, that is, but it becomes small habits, the simple habits. And you if you want to stop before it starts to burn, then stop. If you keep on doing it, well, today I've done 1, next week I can do 10. It is that just making it easy to do something. And then there's also the opposite of making it hard to do the things that you don't want to happen. So the idea of, where's the remote? Oh, I took it upstairs and the TV's downstairs. And so the habit of switching the TV on straight away is more difficult to achieve. Or if you got into, as I did for a while, this doom scrolling stuff, where you wake up in the middle of the night and you think, where's my phone? Oh, just check. Oh, this has happened, that's happened. And no wonder I can't sleep, because so I've got into the habit of that. So that's right, you take the phone, simple habit of putting it downstairs, making it more difficult to do the things that you don't want to. And so it takes a little bit of working out some of those simple things. Some of the other things is based around community. I can't let so and so down if I say I'm going to come and meet them. I can't, we promised that on Saturday we'd be going camping. All of those social pressures make a difference. So there are some small bits there. I suggest yeah, I've seen it there. Rani said, tiny habits, BJ Fogg. really, really good book. James Clear's book, Atomic Habits. Good read as well. Charles Duhigg wrote a book, fantastic, on habits, the power of habits. These things is worth a huge conversation in itself. So, but they're really important.
My habit is definitely making it every morning before I start thinking. I just put my running shoes on and I have my clothing laid out, what I need to wear, so I don't have to think about it, because as soon as I think about it, I will find a way to think my way out. That's for sure. So if the shoes are laid out and my clothing is out, I just put on my running shoes, walking shoes, and get out just for 15 minutes, nothing more. And when I feel a little bit better, then I just continue running for 30, 40, 1 hour. But the starting point is to put those clothing on and just get out of the house. Get out of the house, close your eyes. It's going to be okay. Just open the door and go. Don't allow you to think about it. Have a glass of water next to your bed so you have a bit of hydration, but don't go upstairs into the kitchen, into the living room. Just get out of the house. And getting the movement in the morning is so important, not only from that, but also you get a little bit of sunshine, morning sunshine, which we know so well is so important for our sleep. So super habit building list that you have given us. Thank you, Johnson. And before we move on, for everybody who has joined us here on Zoom to our private chat, afternoon tea chat, I would love to ask to summarize this incredible conversation into 3 actionable and practical takeaways that our listeners can implement right away to take control of their movements.
Sorry, I was busy reading the chat. It's amazing. It's all the answers are on the chat.
Absolutely. I think if you guys allow us, we will just screenshot everything and share it with our social media.
Yeah.
I've had so many nice lists here, definitely.
Definitely the actionables, start with small. Don't worry about the big. Think about your daily movements. What is it you can do that is easy to do, that you stop doing, that isn't going to really cost you anything in terms of time? If you got kids, and you need to play with your kids, get down on the floor, because doing that, you're activating more of your muscles. Getting up off the floor activates muscles. All of these things are really simple. When they looked at the blue zones, where they looked at centenarians, there was no exercise anyway. They were busy sweeping the floors or making bread. You know how much energy it takes to punch that dough? It's absolutely huge. Forget the bread machine. Pack that away somewhere. Chop some veg. You know, why pay Tesco or whoever else to pre-package the veg for you, which, by the way, is you run the risk of issues with bacteria. So why pay somebody to do that when you can chop your own veg? If you're really serious about making more use of your energy, get a blunt knife. But there's simple things that we can find. Be curious about what's around you. Don't just, this is the way I do it. Because nobody can give you all the tips. There's nobody. Find people who say, well, tell me your tip. How do you do X, Y, and Z? How do you build your habits? Yeah, well, I put the cherries on the table when I'm watching TV, so I don't reach for the chocolate, which I put on the top of the cupboard. And I need, because I'm less than 6 foot, I need a stepladder to get up there to get the chocolate. It works by making it easy and making it harder at the same time. Yeah.
And for those who have joined us on Zoom, do let us know in the chat, what are you taking away from here? And if you're on YouTube, let us know how you have been inspired to take more movement into your lifestyle. Maybe when you share, you inspire other people as well. And maybe knock on somebody's door next to you who you know a little bit. You had said hi to them a few times and kind of ask them, do you want to go for a walk? Actually, this happened to me last year over Christmas, where I invited my neighbor, and I found out that actually they have been suffering greatly from loneliness, and that knock really changed their life around. After that, she knocked on another neighbor's door, and they started a little walking group from our neighborhood with all the ladies, and they keep knocking on each other's doors, and I can actually hear it from my house. And it's so wonderful to see them uniting, because they have been given that permission that you allowed them to go and say hello. Sometimes we forget how difficult it can be to actually go out there and say hello, because everybody's kind of scared to make those connections, especially now through lockdown. So how inspiring. I'm definitely inspired to get out and have a little movement today evening after this session. But don't go anywhere if you are here on Zoom. Thank you so much, Johnson, for joining us today on this free event where you're spending your time sharing so much wisdom with us. We are really very grateful. And if you guys want to connect with Dr. Johnson, we will be sharing the links to his website, YouTube channel, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter channel in the chat on the right side, and it's already here on YouTube. Do hit that subscribe button. It does help us a lot. Share this conversation with everyone who you would like to live a long and fulfilling life. If you want to subscribe to us, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and you can check out our website where you can become a free member to continue this conversation. Thank you very much for joining us today, and we hope that you join us next week on the 16th of January, where we will be talking to Charlie Rowe, continuing the conversation about physical activity and its health benefits. Thank you, Johnson, once again for joining us.
You're welcome.